Hey there, this is Brian. We're going to be doing some shadows cast from point light source on kind of a tabletop. I've got some basic primitives here. I've got a orange that's a sphere almost, a box of, I'm considering this matches that lit the candle, and a cup. Um, this is just a reference image just to kind of show you what's happening. You don't have to do this exactly. So, whoa, I don't know what I did. Cancel. Um, So let's just mark this up for a minute and I'll show you what's happening. And am I on the right layer? Yeah. All right, so when you look at a point light source, let's just go to the dead center of this. Why is this not bright? There we go. Um, so we'll just kind of pick the dead center of this candle or the flame as the basic light source. And I'm going to do this just super quick and dirty instead of neat and tidy. So let's fatten this up a little bit. All right, so here's our actual light source, and then we got to find the point on the ground, which is directly below that, and it's about right there. And then if you kind of follow the lead from our previous classes, let's do this box for a second. So if we go from the, let's take a point here on the corner, and if we follow this down to the base and just consider this one little point as a little flagpole, and then we cast a light ray from the light source through the top of that little flagpole and base through the base of this, and let this go over. And I'm not quite exactly right, but you can see that this made this little point right there in the little crook of this in the opening drawer of the matchbooks, let's call it. Um, there's some other lines here, like this one, that go so long you don't actually meet up. So all you really need is the direction, which is from this the base. So if I go over here and just you'll see I go off the page. If I go from my light source down through the top of this, you'll see that that actually meets up off of my drawing. So I don't really need to worry so much about how long that is because I just need this little transition from light to shadow. There is some shadow just right on the edge there. You could see the other really important thing is this fall off. So the light kind of emanating from this candle, it falls off in the squares. So like if it's, let's say, one candle brightness, I forget what they call it, but it's the lumens or whatever. If we go twice that distance, it's not half of that, it's 4 times less. And then this is 8 times less. So you can see it really falls off pretty quickly. And what that means is that it's really bright around here, and then it kind of fades pretty quickly out to the distance. So the other thing is, let's see if we figured out this. There's some shortcuts we can take. One of them is that this edge here goes off to some vanishing point, and this bottom goes to that same vanishing point. So this shadow from that point should actually go to this same vanishing point. And so from this little corner, we could actually say, all right, we're casting a shadow of this edge, and so that is going to be parallel to there. Now, I could also connect these two. If I could actually create this dot over here, I could just connect those two lines because this is these 2 points and this is these 2 points. So that would give us that edge. Now let's go over to this other edge. So same shortcut, I could look at this and say, all right, this goes over to some vanishing point over there. So from this point, I could pretty much assume that this goes parallel to the same vanishing point. Let's figure it out though. Let's see if we could do this manually. So if I made a little flagpole here and snapped a line, and let's see if this ends up on our page. Just off the page. And so we have this point here connected to this point here, and if I drew a little snapped line there, so you can see these are, don't get confused by these overlapping lines. One of them is a connection between 2 points. Here, I'll just do this in blue. Yeah, that's the shadow of this edge. The other one right here, which I'll do in green just to clarify, is just the direction over to this little flagpole shadow, the base direction going right through the base of this. So 2 lines, don't get confused. Blue line is the one we want. All right, so let's look at one other thing here that's kind of interesting, is that this light source, if we went through the edge of this rim of the candlestick holder, that's going to kind of make the kind of beginning of our ellipse right there. It can't go any wider than that. And then same over here on this side. So this is going to kind of set the tone for this shadow that we got right here. Now, because this is dead center over the base, this means that this ellipse is actually going to be dead center over this. So, because this is on the ground, this actually, if we looked at it from the side view, it kind of, I made it tip up a little bit to catch the dripped wax. So the point down here is where my ellipse should go, and that's the point directly on the base of the ground. So this ellipse has a center right there that tangents these lines. And I suppose if I just drew a horizontal through here, that would be the major axis, and then this would be the minor axis. All right, so let's quickly, I'm going to get rid of some of this and just start another layer. Let's look at this cup for a minute. So if you look at it, we've got a couple things going on. See what I did there? Couple of things. So we've got a transition from light to shade, and that is if we, you can see there's a kind of an upper and a lower, but let's go back and map out our base and draw over here. And you can kind of see this gets a little fuzzy in here, but that tangents the cup about right there. And so there is a shadow that goes along right there. Now we've got kind of a step in, so this cup kind of goes like this, so they're stackable. So this kind of pops back out, and there's the second transition of the shadow, the core from light to dark. And let's see. And then if you look on the inside, that's also happening. It's very subtle, but it's right there. So this part of the cup on the inside is in the shade, and then right here is where it's transitioning into the light. And then here's a real good example of, you can see all the highlights. One there, there's some little reflections there, I think are reflecting in the liquid. There's some, I made this liquid, it's actually rippling, so it's catching some of those highlights. And then there's little subtle things too, like I actually made the surface tension of the, what I was assuming to be coffee, curl up here. So it gets really thin right at that edge, and you can see the color changing. Also notice how the wax is a really good transmitter of light. And so you get this, it's called subsurface scattering, where the light is penetrating into the wax and it's penetrating down, and the kind of more light there is coming from this, the deeper it will penetrate. And you can see the fall off there where it's turning back to opaque wax. So let's get rid of that, and let's just delete that one too. So a couple other little things like this handle here on the cup. If I went back and found the base, and just consider this for a minute, again, just break everything. If you get confused, break things down into flagpoles. So because this is overhanging a little bit, I think that this point is about out there. And so if I went from the base here out, let's just for a minute ignore everything but this, the handle as this flagpole, sorry. And then here's my point light source, so let's go over there, and we'll come down, and all already this is not making any sense. Why is it going the opposite direction? All right, let's skip the shadow for a minute. I'll have to think about this. I get stumped too. I do have to think about things for a while before they make sense. But eventually you'll come to some logic conclusion. All right, so last thing is if you look at this orange, we've got this big hot spot here where this light is coming down, and this core should kind of work around this and go perpendicular to this light direction that's coming off of this. And then if you look at the shadow, again, the candle width is, it's actually coming from all of this. It would be better if it was just one little tiny dot. So it's going to make a little bit of a softer shadow, but if I could see the shadow over on the other side, oh, that's an arc. It should be fitting in with these two tangent lines that are hitting the orange. And then if I think about this too, it's like the orange is, you know, if I actually map this out, the point on the ground is probably about there. And so the shadow has to, this ellipse has to kind of come on both sides of this and go all the way out to this, the furthest reaches of this light ray that I just drew in there. All right, so that's more or less that one. Let's get rid of this one, delete, and let's look at this next one here. So this is, I just took the same elements and kind of moved them around so we could see things better. So here's the, you know, this, which is, it's a little bit lopsided, but it's basically a sphere, the orange. So let's kind of map those same light rays from the light source. So if I tangent to the object and run out into space, you can see that like I said, it's a little bit fuzzy, but it shouldn't go too much further out beyond these tangent lines. Now, if I look at the, again, the base is just a little bit lower than this, but if I went through the kind of, I'm assuming that this thing is sitting on its base about right there. Going through the center of that will create my ellipse. It's got to be somewhere on this line. Now, this is a little weird because the center here is definitely not in the center of this ellipse, but it is on this line, which is going to be the major axis. And the width of this, if we had mapped this original cone out, I think, like if I had started with a cube and did my sphere and kind of mapped this out and had my ellipse on the ground, I believe I should be able to, let's see, this is find these points that are opposite here on this. And if I came out through those, I'm just making this up as I go along, but this should be something of the minor axis. It's not quite lining up. So here is this big long shadow from the, oh my goodness, thought I turned off notifications, but I guess I didn't. Okay, let's look at the box real quick because that'll make a little more sense. It's a little easier. And this green color, let's go to something, let's try a blue. Okay, so again, whoops, come on. All right, so I'm going to take that upper point and the lower point, base and the light, and let's map out. Actually, first let me just draw this in a little bit tighter because it's all in the shadow and the shade, so it's a little hard to tell exactly where that cube is. But if you had drawn this to begin with, you'll have all these lines. So that'll be, the blue will be the object. And let's just snap some lines here. So this light direction is going through this upper corner, and then from the base, and these kind of line up pretty much right on top of each other, so this is a little hard to see where that's going to come together. But these other corners will make it a little bit more easy to see. So there's the light direction coming from the top corner, and here's the light angle, or sorry, the direction is coming from the base, angle is coming from the top, and those meet up about right there. And again, as we just talked about, this and this are all going to this vanishing point over here. So this, even though I'm just connecting these 2 points, I know that these should also line up with that vanishing point over on that side. So let's do this last side over here. Here's a little flagpole. Here's our light direction. Let's snap that and go off here. And this goes off to here. And these meet up a little further out because I may have made that too low or too high or something or other. But you see that this and this are effectively connected. There's a little step right there where this smaller drawer comes in. So let's, if I were going to get all advanced on you guys, it would be right here. So this should be a little bit taller, and then it should step in just slightly right there. And let's turn this off again, and you'll see what I'm talking about right there. Oops, can't do that. So you can see this little jog right there is actually representative of that. Now let's look at the cup again. So again, if you're drawing this from scratch, we'll have the kind of ellipse. Maybe this is the wrong color now. Let's go back to blue. So you'll have the ellipse that you started with for your cup, and I'm just going to make this a straight cylinder. And I'm kind of guessing at where it is behind the orange. I think it's a little higher up, about like that. All right, so if we go from the base, maybe there. This is a little different because the cup actually starts a little bit narrower, but I'm going to tangent those two edges, and you'll see that out here, this is much wider on both sides. And then let's look at the top light source. I'll do this in blue. Let's just draw this in here. And let's go, I like to just start with the tangent. So this is just tangenting this. So that means I can't go any further out than that. This is tangenting this side. And so I've got these kind of weird 4 lines here, and I know my ellipse needs to be horizontal major axis and vertical minor axis, and it's got to fit in all 4 of these kind of corners. And again, if I have my box that I've begun with, I could actually I could kind of like what we did with the ellipses, is I could cast the shadow of the top of the box, which will kind of splay out. And so I'll get a bigger shadow of the box. And then I could figure out how to fit an ellipse inside that box. And that would be something similar to this. This is kind of a shorter thing that I did, is just because I'm just using the tangent lines in the bottom, tangent lines in the top, and fitting an ellipse in there. And then right across here, that's going to tangent connect to the original cylinder. So let's jump now one more. Boop. All right, so this one, the background's just a little bit lighter. So, but you'll see this is kind of interesting. Let's look at this cup for a minute. Oops, keep on doing this. Okay, so the cup comes down, and what I want you guys to do is start with your cube layout from last time and make this into a scene of tabletop with candlelight. So turn one of your objects into the cylinder, into some sort of cup or can, or whatever you want that's a cylinder. Your sphere can be turned into, I've done some fruit here, it could be anything spherical that you wish. And instead of the cube, I kind of cut it down into a smaller size and made this lower box just so I wouldn't be blocking out the candle if the box was in front of it. I wanted a shallow, shorter box. And then we also have the cone, which I didn't do here, but you could do something like this where, let's say I've figured out my cone, I could truncate it anywhere. So it's kind of more of a beginning. I'm going to make this into a salt shaker, and then maybe I'll start with a sphere on top of this and throw some little um, holes in there. So that could be a salt shaker for all I know, or you could just do it with these basic items here because these ones are a little bit more obvious. In some ways, maybe this candlestick holder itself is the cone. Um, so you could do that as well, although it's not really casting a shadow from itself because it's buried in the shadow. In fact, let me talk about that real quick. This is a little hard to see because of the material. In fact, this illustration is really hard to see. So let's turn this off and turn. Oh, I deleted one of them. Oh well. Yeah, we'll just stick with this one for now. So what's happening here is the edge of this candle itself is casting a shadow. So let's just, again, pick this light source. If we went down, the shadow just from the candle casts a very wide circle. So if you ever look at just a single candle, you'll see it actually has a big shadow under it. Now, this is a little bit different because this is taller, so there's some light coming from the tip of this and some from the base, but from the tip of this, it's coming down. And so, like I said, if I had a different material on here, you would see that there's actually a shadow from the candle casting down into this dish. And then this shadow down here is a shadow from the dish onto the ground, onto the table. So there's two different things going on. So let's see, what are we going to do next? Let's turn these all off. Boop. Go back to our, well, that's very bright now. So I took my basic setup that I had last time. I had a bunch of cubes, and I'm going to move some of my items around just because the shadows are going to get all confusing if I left it as was. And again, I'm not going to do this in great detail because I want to keep this really short. In fact, I'll do this really quick because my class is starting in a few minutes. So when I got this set up here, and what I'm going to basically ask you to do is make a candle, but it's better if the candle is taller. So let's just do this a really simple. I could take one of these boxes to draw the candle, but I could also, if you remember, if we make a diagonal going through the square of any of these, they should find us our diagonal vanishing point. And so actually I'm going to go through all three of these. I could do all four. Diagonal, whoops. Yeah, so it's somewhere around here. I think this is a little high. Let's just pick this there. So if I did a candle, any square over here, because at this point, I don't need necessarily it to be equally as high as it is tall. I just need a perfect square. So if I take an edge here and go over till I hit that diagonal and come down, that would be a perfect square. Once I've got that, I'm going to map it out into a circle. I'm going to project this up. Now this candle is going to be coming up above the horizon. And the higher it is, the more easy it's going to be to make your shadows. So let's just stop there for a second. I'm going to draw the ellipse, and I'll just put that little light source, but it's going to be a candle like that. And then I'll start mapping out the shadows. Let me get rid of these guys here. So I've got my my base right there. I've got my height, and let's just map the shadow first of this box here in the front. So I'm going to come out through all the four corners. 1, 2, 3, and actually I really only need the front three. And then here's again where I could cheat. I'm going to go through this first corner here and map it out. So I needed to make these a little bit longer. All right, so there's my first point. Now, if I could go all the way around this, but I could also say, all right, this is going to this vanishing point. So these got to go to that same vanishing point. And once I connect here, this has got to go to that vanishing point. So that's the shadow of this box. Since it's in front of the candle, all of this also will be in the shadows. And then let's do the sphere, because I think all the other things are relatively self-explanatory. So you can see, I think I got the original box down there. Let's start a new layer and get rid of that one. And whoops, oh, I do need that one. Let's just turn this way down. And again, there's the light source, the base. So first step, let's look at this. Let's do a tangent line down through this. And let's go through the center here. So from the base, my class is starting. I will finish this up real quick. Okay, so we got tangent line. We went through the center. So the center of the ellipse has got to fit there. Can't be any wider than that or this tangent line. Okay, so we got those ones. And let's do one out from the edges of this ellipse that I projected onto the ground. Because that's the ultimate, like if I projected the shadow straight down, it can't be any wider than that. All right, so we've got an ellipse that's got to stretch out. Let's see. It's got to, I'm kind of doing this a little quick here, but it's got to fit within all of these lines. So it can't be any wider than that. It's got to have a center line coming out here like this. And this one's coming out at you, so it's a little different than the one I showed you before. So I think we got something kind of like this. And let's see, if I had an equator. Oh, I see it's not. Okay. Yeah, I think this is the best I could do in this short amount of time, but see what you could do. So we're creating a light, single point light source, which is a candle, and we're creating a tabletop scene with all our cubes. We can use the same setup that we had before, and this time you're going to add the lighting to make this into some sort of scenery. And then last little quick tip is that in a lot of times when I do this, instead of, like I was mentioning, you paint the light. So Brian, we need a big airbrush. I'm going to do this in a super bright garish color, but you'll actually, like, here's the light source here. So start there and then kind of fade out, but it's the brightest in the center, and then go in and erase this. That would be your light. Erase your shadows out of there and erase your objects out of there. And let's see, this is, and you'll get this kind of fall off that's more natural that way. I didn't do it quite enough because there's not enough light coming around this corner here so you could see the shadow in front of the box. But that's going to be it for today. That's your homework, is basically taking what we did last time and creating it into a scene with a point light source instead of daylight.